Hi, hello, and welcome to another video with iChongqing. My name is Fernando Munoz. My channel is Fermove, and today we are going to be talking about infrastructure in China. I am joined today once more by Aiko from iChongqing and Paul from Walkabout Rojo. So I would like to, welcome you to the stream. Those of you watching, those of you on your computers, on your phones, seeing our live stream, welcome to our show. And welcome, Aiko. How are you today?
Thank you, Fernando. I'm fine. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Chen, a reporter of iChongqing. iChongqing is the official media organization of Chongqing, which is a mega municipality in southwestern China. Feel free to subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We will present the tourism, cultural, economical, technological, and political information about Chongqing and China for you. Today, I'm just glad to connect with Fernando here. We did an amazing live stream to talk about China's poverty alleviation last time. And nice to see you again. And I'm also glad to meet Paul, our guest today, who produces many interesting videos about China's infrastructure projects, industries, and architecture. I've got some questions for our guest today and for our audience as well. These questions include most of my curiosities about your opinions of China's infrastructure and its future. And at the end of our show, I'm going to show you guys some really awesome footage about China's undergoing infrastructure projects. Some of them are really going to blow your mind. So stay tuned and like and share. Thanks.
All right. And Paul, how are you today? For those of you who don't know Paul, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Hey, everybody. I'm Paul from Walkabout Rojo. I've been in China for about 6 years and making YouTube videos about my travels and my exploration, not just in China, but throughout Southeast Asia. And I actually, a lot of people don't know this. I'm a teacher here, a very proud teacher, but I have a lot of free time to roam and travel the country. And so I've witnessed and experienced uh, all the not just the new infrastructure, but the old infrastructure that still exists throughout the country. And I'm really excited to talk about this. I have a civil engineering background in a previous life, so it's always a fascinating topic, and I'm really excited to share my opinions and my thoughts about the topic.
All right, good, perfect. So we are going to start this discussion with our first impression of China and China's infrastructure when we arrived here. So, as Paul mentioned, you've been here for 6 years, and I've been here for I'm going to be going on 21 years already in about 6 days. It will be my anniversary of arriving to China. So, why don't we start with that particular question, Paul? What was your first impression of China's infrastructure upon arriving? And then I'll build up on that from my perspective, okay? So
Okay,
what do you remember from those days?
I remember before I came, my impression of it was everything I saw on the internet, everything I saw in media. There's a lot of documentaries made about China is going to build the largest this, China's going to build the largest that. And this goes back 20 years or so, reading, Thomas Friedman's The World is Flat, which is a book talking about the rise of Asia, India and China in particular. And it was almost like a race of these two countries building this. And everyone thought, oh, it can't be done. It can't be done. And when I got here, I realized it can be done and it's being done. And when I first, for example, we have a giant bridge we'll talk about later here in Zhongshan, linking Shenzhen and Zhongshan together. That was first announced right around the time I arrived in China. And I remember hearing about it and thinking, there's no way they can build something like that. That's not going to happen. And sure enough, it's being built. I'm shocked that it's just a couple of years away from completion, from cradle to grave. These projects really take on a life of their own, and they get done. And it continues to surprise me. Some of the reasons why I enjoy living here is every time I go someplace, there's something new and something interesting. It's fascinating.
Right. I will share with you my impression. I have to admit that when I first came to China, I was just blissfully ignorant of China. I didn't know much other than what I had seen on pictures here and there or news rolls here and there. And landing in Shanghai, it just completely blew my, like, I was not expecting this. I always say to people, I was expecting people on bicycles. I was expecting people wearing Mao suits. I was expecting something completely different. So to see roads of very high quality, just this gigantic, brand new Pudong airport, hotels, high rises, I was just like my eyes wide open because I had no idea China would be like this modern, this developed. But that's 20 something years ago. So if you fast forward to today, it just keeps on amazing me. It keeps on surprising me. And what you thought was really, really developed and really modern, it just, those limits are blown away. Every single year there's something new, something better being built, something being improved, something that is bringing better well-being to people and a better life for people. And that's the main thing that impressed me, the contrast of what I knew and what I was able to experience through all these years. You cannot imagine the disconnect. You cannot imagine the difference between one and the other. So it's very difficult to pinpoint that one single thing that impressed me the most. But it's a combination of things, and we're going to go through several of these aspects as we go through this conversation. I want to throw in a question today, talking about what do we think are some of the most significant, the names of some infrastructure developments in China that we consider to be more significant. I would like to kind of like split this question into three. The first one would be, when you first got here, what do you think is the infrastructure or the thing that surprised you the most about China's infrastructure? I don't know Aiko's experience in terms of moving around China, but I'll start with Paul and then we go to Aiko. What surprises you the most about China's infrastructure? So let's go with Paul first.
Okay. Well, I was mostly interested in some of the ancient infrastructure of China. I'm sorry, I'm a little blurry out there. The camera's coming in and out, but I'll do my
It's
best.
okay.
Some of the more ancient infrastructure projects that we all know about. The Great Wall and the Grand Canal. The Grand Canal, especially. I mean, this is a project that was done hundreds of years ago, but it goes from Beijing to Hangzhou. It's the largest and longest man-made canal in the world, and it's still being used. And it's not just the canal where the barges and the boats go back and forth moving commerce. It's the bridges, the carriage bridges, the people bridges that link all the towns and the villages and the cities together on both sides of that canal. And I was really interested in seeing things like that. But what really surprised me was it's right next to the brand new stuff, and they're working in conjunction together. So this old ancient canal is working in conjunction with ports all up and down, the east coast of China, including the massive new container port in Shanghai. It how it all links together, the old and the new, is something that fascinates me as a student of engineering and of infrastructure. And so that's really caught me by surprise, because I came to see the old stuff, and what I found was the old stuff and the new stuff working together. And I really, really like that a lot.
All right. So, Aiko, what kind of elements of infrastructure surprise you the most from your experience?
I'll say, as a Chinese, I never felt surprised when I just in my country, but when I go abroad for travel or something, sometimes I feel surprised. With when there is no 4G signal there, or any these green energy charging stations, or some convenience facilities for the public. I think, is it like, are we living in a modern city? Because in China or in Chongqing, we don't live like this. We live like a city with multiple skyscrapers and high buildings, and it's very convenient for people to live or for the transportation. So sometimes it just surprised me when I go abroad, not in China. So I think it's like sometimes it's a big there's a big difference between what China is going and what the West six countries is going. And I understand some reasons behind it, but I think that's my point. That's my take. Yeah.
Hmm.
I'd like to speak to that real quick. Of course, China is massive. I mean, you can look at the numbers and you can say it till you're blue in the face, but until you see it with your own eyes, you really have no sense of how big the country is. And so when you see these giant cities with giant skyscrapers and all these bridges and all these roads and trains, it is necessary to sustain such a large population and grow an economy of this size. So comparing it to Western countries, yeah, I had the same thing when I go back home. It doesn't mean one I think is better than the other. There's also culture differences involved here, and we talked about this in preparation. Let's talk about the real quick the 5G, for example. I just got a 5G phone. I love it. It's everywhere. It's great. I can go hiking in the middle of the mountains and still have 4G coverage and stream videos or stream music or chat with my friends on WeChat, and I have maps to guide me. In America, that almost doesn't exist in rural areas, but that's mostly because of the privatization of the cell networks. It's a profit business. It's a for-profit endeavor. So to link a rural village or countryside town, if there's no money to be made, then they're not going to link it. That's not the case here in China. They link every single village in every single part of the country. But that also goes back to kind of the culture. The culture of China is very collectivist. It's very communal. And it has to be when you have this many people living on top of each other. But for example, my country, America, part of the reasons why I like going hiking and out into the countryside is because there is no cell connection.
Signal.
It's a way of unplugging. And so the culture has a lot to do with that. I love going camping in America, and I love going camping in China. But the two experiences are vastly different, mostly because of the collectivist culture versus the individualistic culture in America.
Yeah.
I would add something to what Paul just mentioned, and it's just a question. I think that 5G and the telecommunication companies in China, they're also profitable. I mean, somebody can correct me in the chat if in the messages if I'm wrong, but it's just there's a service and there's the need and the desire to provide a service, and then there's
numbers.
added profit.
Yeah.
The numbers too, yeah.
The numbers really do it.
Well, I want to show you perhaps what surprised me the most when I first got to China. Before I came to China, all I knew was that China was the factory of the world. And when you think about a factory, you think like a cement jungle. When I saw this video, let me show it to you, and then we can talk over it. This is my city. This is my city today. This is how green the cities are here in China, the big cities. This particular green corridor is something that is absolutely amazing. There's a certain green coverage that is required here in my city, and this is by mandate by the government. 45% and more of the city needs to be covered in green. And this particular residential area here, all residential areas need to be more than 35% of green coverage rate. You don't expect that when you hear, well, it is the factory of the world. You can see this particular highway that you're seeing here is called the Dongguan Boulevard. Dongguan Dadao is about 16 kilometers from the city center into the Hojie town. That was built back in 2000. And between the city center and Hojie, there was absolutely nothing. It was all just barren land. It's just farmlands, and that was it. There was nothing. But they had already built this 8-lane freeway, connecting the two. This is the middle of the city. It makes you feel like you're living in a garden. This is just a traffic light, a junction in the middle of the city. This is right next to to a lot of offices and government buildings. It's just, it brings so much joy. And this is what surprised me so much, me being Colombian and we having flowers being so important in our culture, to see so many flowers and so much green. I also would like to comment how much work it brings to people. These gardens, they need a lot of maintenance, and they give a lot of work to farmers that have been changed from their business model, which was just agriculture, into looking after all these gardens and roads. So this is a side of China that very few people see. Take a look at this. This is right under a bridge. Look at the detail and the decoration and the beauty of this thing when people are flying by at 80 kilometers an hour. Why so much attention? Why so much detail? What is the return on investment? And we're going to talk about that in a second, right? So I think that that's the end of this video. Um, so yes, this is what surprised me the most when we were talking about um, coming to China, and which part of infrastructure surprised me. The amount of green. I did not expect that much green. Um, so why don't we move on to another question? Which part of infrastructure do you think is the most important, the one that has brought about the most change to China in this last few years or decades? I'll start with Paul, and then Eiko, you can tell me what you think. Which one do you think is the most important infrastructure development?
Yeah, there's so much there. It's hard. It's hard to we talked about. It's hard to pick just one thing. I mean, but what we talked about the Internet of Things, and I really believe we could talk about the roads and the highways and the trains and the ports and the canals and all this incredible stuff that we continue to see built. But I think the Internet of Things and the connectivity of the entire country is really opened up so many economic opportunities for everyone everywhere. I mean, it's not just young people, starting businesses, walking around developing an app on their phone. It's young children walking around with phones and participating in the economy in that way. It's the elderly who are in the middle of a field working, a farm, yet they are streaming Douyin videos and shopping on Taobao. I mean, that connectivity with every inch of the country allows everyone to participate in an equal manner. And I think really that is really the big thing. I mean, we've seen so much economic development because of that. And China has led the way in many ways when it comes to a lot of this technology.
Eiko, what is your take? What do you think is the most important infrastructure development?
For me, I still think it's the roads and the high-speed railways. That kind of infrastructure is the most important for China, especially when we talked about the poverty alleviation. It's the infrastructure development that helps with the most of these countrysides and these cities under the poverty line to increase their incomes for the people, to raise their education level, to to manage their industry in that place. So I think the roads and the tunnels and also the high-speed railways are the most important. Actually, I want to share a very, can I share it in the end of our show, or just share it right now? Because I think for Chongqing, Chongqing is a mountain city. We have two rivers crossing the city and separate the city into different parts, different districts. So building the bridge is the top, like the priority project, construction project for Chongqing. So there is a new bridge. It's called it is the world's longest dual purpose bridge. I wanted
Okay,
to
let's see
share
it.
it with you. Yeah.
Go for it.
And it's done in this year.
Look at that.
like the yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. 2 decks. The one upper one is for the roads for the vehicles, and the lower deck is for the rail transit, the monorail, Chongqing's monorail. It's very impressive.
That's amazing. Is the longest?
That's
How
a
Yeah.
long
great
is it? Do you
shot.
know?
About 300 meters.
Wow.
13,
Wow.
13,
That's
13. Sorry,
okay.
1,300 meters. Not 30,
Still.
but still, it's the
Look at that.
longest.
What a great
Yeah.
shot that is.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, the world's
I know
longest.
these shots
Actually,
come from someone we know.
yeah, it's called Baizhusi Yangtze River Bridge, and it's about to get into operate this year. And I'm really glad to share it with you. And we have a video about it on our YouTube channel, and it's produced by James, our reporter from England. And I want you guys to watch it if you want. Like it, and if you like it, please like and share. Okay, it's a very excellent video. Yeah, and Chongqing has like 33 bridges
Mm.
only in downtown. Yeah, not to mention these
Wow.
bridges in districts. So building
Yeah,
these bridges is very important for Chongqing.
Yeah,
And
Chongqing has a lot of nicknames, and city of the mountains, city of the clouds, and the city of the bridges. And when you
yeah,
go there, it definitely lives up to that name for sure.
yeah, and yeah. Okay.
I've been on that
The
bridge. I know
alleviation
that
of
bridge.
traffic.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
alleviation of traffic must be
Well, there's
fantastic.
something to be said about that. I'm from LA, man.
Well,
so
they do
it's,
drive
it's a
funny.
little different. Yeah. So some
All right.
people say
Well,
that if you
look,
build
for
it, they will come, and that's what happens. The traffic comes if you build it. So
I think that the most important infrastructure change for me is kind of like connected to um, communications and this whole e-commerce. I want to share this video with you as I tell you. I think that the ability for people to purchase and to do commerce from their phones is just incredible. You can go to restaurants, you can go to supermarkets, you can do just about everything with your phone. And building this cashless economy, it's a fantastic fail-proofing towards the future-proofing the economy of China, particularly when you're thinking about cryptos, particularly when you're thinking about, well, the future of commerce in the world. So these highways, together with all these platforms, allow people from all walks of life to participate in the economy of the country. You can wash your car and pay from your phone. You can shop and go to clothing stores and buy with your phone, as you can see there. You can go to gas stations and pay with your phone. The creation of a cashless economy, to me, is a project of infrastructure that completely changed China and is putting China at the forefront of the world in terms of economies and how the future will play out in terms of countries that are going to be leading. Oh, that's my wife's car. You can even get a haircut and pay with your phone. That's how
you can
high
donate to
tech
charity. Yeah.
You can donate to charity as well. You can go to McDonald's and get a burger. It's something that to me has changed the way we lived, has changed the way we operate and we see things. Paying for parking, everything is done through your phone. I invite you, Paul, to remind us, when was the last time you paid with cash? It might have happened someday, but I don't know.
Well, I always keep a little bit of cash with me, and I typically pay, fill up my tank and just pay with cash. Here's 300 and go. I don't even get out of my car because in Guangdong they pump it for you, and here's some cash. But that's my choice. It's just that's what I choose. Now, remember, I'm an American. I'll tell you this: when I first came to China and I saw everyone paying with WeChat and everything, I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. Just I got cash in my pocket. Let me pay with cash. So I was reluctant to get into this. And then I went back, and then I started getting into it. I'm like, okay, this is starting to get in Meituan and everything. And I went back to America, and I went to a movie, and I went up to the window and one for the movie, please. I took out my phone and I went, wait, where do I pay? Oh, that's right. And I had to go back. This is true. I had to go back to my car and grab my wallet and get cash and pay with cash. And of course most people use credit cards now. This idea of the cashless society is really starting to catch on in Western countries. It was really China that led the
Mm,
way and kind of was an early adopter, worked out a lot of the bugs. And now I think especially the younger generation in Western countries are really kind of catching on. And especially with the pandemic, you're starting to see this really come forward in Western countries. So the Western countries are adopting this lifestyle as well, very, very quickly. But it was China that
mm.
led the way and was really the early adopters in it. And it was a pleasure to see that firsthand the last few years.
And it also create
Well,
many job opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
sorry. I
Okay,
wanted
just add some
to move on
point.
to the next part of the question, but before I did that, I wanted to share something that happened to me. I went back home in 2018, very jet lagged, so I ended up popping into a McDonald's and I ordered, and then I'm like, oh, I don't have Colombian money. I don't have money. I can't pay. So I had to tell the guy, like, I'm so terribly sorry. I need to go get some money somewhere. I'll be back because
You forget.
it was just not there. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let me pop on to the next question, Paul. I think that this is only for Paul because, well, basically the question itself will tell you. What is the biggest contrast in terms of infrastructure that you find between China and your home country? You share your perspective, and I'll share mine in a second. When you first came here, what was the biggest contrast, Paul?
Um, just the sheer ease of it, the amount of it. Just a quick example: if you want to travel in the United States, you have the interstate systems, which are amazing systems. The American interstate system is truly remarkable, and it's really nice, and it connects the entire country together, and it's free. But and then you have the state highway systems as well. But we don't have train service. If you want to go, in a relatively short amount of time from the West Coast to the East Coast, you need to fly. And so there aren't other very many options to do that. You can take a Greyhound bus, but those are few and far between. What really shocked me was the amount of buses going everywhere. The trains are great too, but connecting the train hubs, because the high-speed trains don't go to the smaller villages. So like during the Spring Festival, everyone's going back home to their villages. They can take a train to a transportation hub. They can take a plane to a train. Then
Hmm.
they need to get on a coach and get to a rural area. And it's not like it's one coach every couple days or even once per day. There are like four or
No.
five per day just going everywhere. They're everywhere. And so the coach system, the bus system, all these different bus companies going all over the place, not just the city buses. That was really shocking to me. And it's affordable. And so you can literally go anywhere in the country for very little amount of money. Yeah.
For me, in terms of contrast, if you guys don't know, I'm from Colombia. I come from Colombia. Was the tunnels. The amount of the quality of tunnels. I remember
Mm.
driving my parents in 2006 from Dongguan, Guangdong to Guilin, and we lost count of how many tunnels there are on that way. And coming from a country that is very mountainous like Colombia, 3 different mountain ranges, where, just to give you an example, to go from the capital city, Bogota, a very important financial center, and my city, which is allegedly the second largest city in the country, is 400 kilometers, 450 kilometers. It could take you up to 8 hours to go there because of all the different mountain ranges that you have to go across. But when you look at a place like Guizhou, for example, which was disconnected from the rest of China because it is so mountainous, in the last 20 years, the amount of tunnels, highways, and infrastructure that has built to shorten the travel time from one place to another to connect Guizhou, which was one of the poorest provinces because of this isolation, to the rest of China and in the end to the rest of the world, is just unbelievable. So tunnels for me were one of those things where, why can we have tunnels in my country? What we need them. There is one particular tunnel called La Linea, which was just finished. When I was born, people were talking about, oh, we need this tunnel. Oh, we need this tunnel. I'm going to turn 50, and it was just finished in cooperation with Chinese development company. So finally, it took us 50 years to build that tunnel, and it's partial. Is not the whole tunnel. It's not everything that we need, but yeah, at least we're getting there. That to me was unbelievable. The quality, the length, and the number of tunnels in China. All right. Let us remind everybody that if you're enjoying this live stream, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Make sure to hit the link in the description down below to go to our different channels, Walkabout Rojo, my own, and iChongqing, of course. But let us move on to another aspect of infrastructure that we wanted to discuss today. How
Before we enter
does...
this, I'm sorry,
Okay,
before we
Aiko,
enter
sorry.
this, we have a comment that I want to draw my opinion about it. Do you really want to use a train for 3,000 kilometers from east? It says the flying, taking the airplane is much cheaper and more convenient. I want to answer this comments because
Please do.
we cannot deny that China is a very big country and with multiple topographies. So the infrastructure construction in China is like building on multiple different geography conditions. So we cannot build airports everywhere. That's why we build the train stations. That's why we build the railways. That's why it's so important the railway is. So I think you should consider that, and that's what we want to talk about. It's the differences between every cities, every areas. They use different strategies to build this infrastructure. Yeah, I think that's a really good comments, and I really want to talk about it. Yeah.
I
And
also want to say
sorry.
that
Paul,
but I also want to
yeah,
say that
you...
flying, guys, we fly a lot in China. Or Fernando, I know
Mm,
you do too. And it's not always more convenient. I mean, when you think about the security measures to get on a plane, waiting,
mm,
baggage, ticketing, and taxiing, flying, and then oftentimes flights get delayed for weather or for various other reasons. But trains in China are on time. They're remarkably on time. And so I know many people throughout the country who travel from, say, Beijing to Shanghai or something, and it's a short little flight, but they elect to take the train because it is always on time. Weather is not a factor, and they can plan their days better. It's something to be said about the train systems here.
Yeah,
I
it says
also I also think that people need to do the math when they think about this. So this person was asking a question about 4,000 kilometer journey. So if you're traveling at 350 kilometers an hour, that's a little bit more than 10-hour uh, train, right? A train ride. Um, if you fly, it will probably be a 3-hour, 4-hour flight, right? So
Depending on the
you
wind.
have to add also, you get tailwind, you go faster. But you also have to consider, well, you need to get to the airport, which is usually away from the city. So it could be a 30-minute, 45-minute. You could line up and get your ticket and get your security check, as you mentioned. And there's at least a 2 to 3 hour, at least a 2 hour wait to catch your flight. And then you fly for your 3 4 hours, and then it will take you probably another hour to get to your final destination. And that's a very small difference of 3 hours when you consider, number one, how cheap trains are, the amount of comfort that you have in a train
Yes.
is much more comfortable. Um, uh, Safety, if you want, punctuality, how much you can get done, you can work a lot more, it's much more comfortable. So yes, it's not that straightforward to me that it is cheaper, faster, more convenient. It could be a little bit faster, but when you factor in cost and time spent, the difference isn't that much.
Yeah. And at our
All
age,
right,
we want
let us...
comfort.
Oh yeah, the back goes.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, I wanted to work a little bit on another topic. Is how do we feel that infrastructure helps the economy? How does it push the economy forward? So I would like to go to Paul. What's your take on this?
My opinion, infrastructure is everything. I mean, infrastructure investment is almost always a good investment in looking at the future and economic development. I mean, it's a simple thing as we're gonna go someplace and we're gonna build some great big thing. And then so you employ people and they get money to build those things. And then they take that money and they go spend it at the local restaurant, or they go spend it at the local hotel, or they build a new hotel next to the big train station. And then you have a restaurant in that train station, and then you have a great big thing gift shop, and a, it stimulates so much, because the true engine of the economy is what we call the velocity of capital. How much is one renminbi moved from this place to this place to this place for goods and services? That exchange is how an economy is healthy or unhealthy. And the more that happens, the better. So infrastructure not only lays the groundwork for economic development and private businesses in the future, no matter what kind of business it could be. It could be an online business, it could be a brick and mortar shop, doesn't matter. It not only lays the groundwork for that, but it also stimulates the local economy and gets it going with the initial dollars it took to build that infrastructure in that local area. So to me, infrastructure is huge. And I think that this is something that the Chinese government really understands very, very well. And that's why they've seen so much of investment in recent years, and they continue to plan and will do more in the future. We're just starting here. It's, as amazing as it is, the future is gonna blow everybody away.
Eiko, what is your take on how infrastructure affects the economy?
Well, I'm not an expert on this, infrastructure topic, but in my opinion, I think for China, the develop the infrastructure is like the top majority in this country, because we still have some areas in cities that are under the poverty line, and our job is to alleviate them from the poverty, and building the infrastructure is the basic the purpose. And
Requirement.
also, yeah, and also it's for the economy to growth. I think when you build in a commercial building here, architecture here, building a bridge here, you create more job opportunities, and you create more financial financial conditions about this project, and that's the industry going. And also I want to mention the new infrastructure that we are going to talk about: the 5G station, the green energy, and the artificial intelligence, and industrial internet. And I've seen some really interesting technologies in the Smart Expo China, this year, and I saw a lot of these industrial internet technologies going on in China. I think they are very interesting, but I really want to know your opinions and thoughts about it, because I'm not an expert, but I'm really interested about this topic, this industrial internet, because I've visited this smart manufacturing like Chang'an in China, and I've went on to get the autonomous bus in Chongqing as well. And I thought these technologies are not just in the blueprint. It's not in the future. It's in right now. It's right now in China. So it's happening. As soon as possible, they all gonna go applied, implemented in this real lives. So I think the future is very important, is what I concern. And I think the future is what the infrastructure is really about. It's always a process. It will not stop. Yeah.
I feel what you're saying is absolutely right, but one key aspect of future-proofing China, and we can talk about some of the issues that China is encountering these days with this whole idea of decoupling from China, China being the factory of the world and the world having issues with that. Well, China has spent the last 20, 30 years building a logistics infrastructure that cannot be replaced in a matter of a few years. The level, the quantity, the volume of products that are shipped throughout China's ports is just you cannot imagine. And that is something that is very important for the stability of China's economy. No matter what is taking place in terms of world trade or whatnot, or diplomacy or politics, these numbers keep going and going and going up. China continues to export and import at levels that are always record breaking. So, this idea that ports are one of the things that has helped or is helping China fail proof its economy, to me is the most significant, without saying that everything else that you have mentioned is not important. But to me, the ports, that's where the safety is going to come in the future. I also want to mention another aspect that it's also the future kind of now, but China is pretty much ahead. The idea of electric vehicles, electric transportation, and as we're also going to talk about automated driving. So, why don't we start talking a little bit about, Paul, what you experience in terms of automated driving, and then I'll show you a short clip of well, how I see the model of electric vehicles being developed in China differently. That's quite contrasting with what has happened in other countries. So, Paul, tell us about your experience with this, and then I'll show the video.
Well, the adoption of new technologies like driverless technology seems to happen a lot faster in China than other countries. That's not to say that other countries don't have autonomous driving. Of course they do. But as you can see here, this is in Zhengzhou. This is the Xiaoyu 2.0 autonomous bus that is actually in service right now on the city streets in Zhengzhou. And I got the opportunity to go and tour it and ride around in it and experience it. And I have to say, it was quite an eye-opening experience. At first, I wasn't too excited for it. I was like a little worried that a computer was going to be driving me around. But after spending about 4 or 5 minutes in this, I felt at ease, and then I really started to see the benefits that this and the application that this type of technology can have, and how it can change our world and our cities. I mean, just driving around, you can sit, you can have your laptop out, do work, have meetings, and not have to worry about some guy cutting you off, because the technology has gotten to the point where this is not really a factor anymore. It's still got some ways to go, but it's a stepping stone. But again, this is just the beginning. You got to look 10, 15, 20 years from now. It's not just going to be buses like this. It's going to be taxi services. It's going to be automated delivery, cargo delivery, all kinds of emergency services, street sweeping. I mean, all of this stuff really is just mind blowing when you start looking into the future 10, 15 years of how it's going to change, not just the way we live, but the local economies, how it'll either speed it up or even have some kind of speed bumps along the way. So it's fascinating to watch, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this all plays out, not just in China, but throughout the world.
I find it very interesting to see how big data comes into play, because once the infrastructure is finished and built and completed, the communication between vehicles and roads and the management of traffic is going to be a computation, is going to be a calculation. So traffic jams are going to be a thing of the past. Optimizing the flow of cars, the number of vehicles, traffic lights, crossings, roundabouts, all these sorts of things are going to be uh, optimized to a point where we're going to experience, well, expedite commerce, expedite transportation is going to make things and life a lot easier and faster. So that's an interesting factor to consider with this driverless, the interaction between the road, the regulations, the traffic control, and the vehicles themselves. That to me is extremely interesting, and it's something that I hope to see in my lifetime. Something
Oh, you
to the
will, man.
point
You're going to
where
live forever, dude.
ah, All right, Aiko, you had some takes into this driverless driving. Would you like to share?
I've watched pause videos before I get on the autonomous bus, and it's really awesome the video. And I also went the on smart logistic warehouse in Chongqing, and they all already have autonomous truck in service. So I get on the
Hmm.
truck as well, and it was really awesome. And I think, yeah, I agree with you guys. The future is right now. And also, I want to say that the interactive between, the Fernando just said that the roads and the vehicles and also the monetary system is more important because that is the infrastructure development. It's not just you develop a vehicle itself. It's the whole system around it. It's like some monetary platform of the vehicle. It's like these smart stamps of this on the roads, smart red lights, smart green lights, smart whole system about around this autonomous vehicle. So I think that requires money, requires strategies, policies to invest to develop this infrastructure. Yeah, that's
For
yeah.
me, the whole network of electric vehicles, it's unbelievable. I mean, you have to give it to somebody like Elon Musk, who decided to fight the fight against legacy automakers and go out there and try to make electric vehicles attractive. Now, his business model was very different from what the business model is here in China. I want to show you a short video about that in a second. But what Elon Musk did was he created a very fancy car, a very expensive car that helped him finance, well, the development of more inexpensive vehicles. We can't say that they're cheap, but they're inexpensive vehicles that then would become consumed by the masses. So that model was kind of different, very different from what China did. Let me show you this clip right here. It's a very short clip, but in China, what the government did is they mandated that a lot of this public transportation, public vehicle, cheaper vehicles like taxis and DDs and all these things had to be electric. So this change in the world, in China, is starting from the ground up. So because you have so many cars that use electric grid, you have to build that electric grid. And once that is built, and think about how difficult it is to do in China, but once that is built, then the private users can actually come in and buy their private vehicles and use this infrastructure to move around the cities and around the country. So the model was very different. They started with cheaper, basic mass transportation or public transportation vehicles that created the need for these charging stations and this infrastructure. And that gave a lot of confidence to private individuals to go out and buy electric vehicles. Um, I also wanted to point out that there's different technologies that are taking place. Not all electric charging stations in China are the same. One of the things that is being developed here, and it's a business model that is quite different, is the swapping of batteries. There's only one company that's doing this here in China, but it's something that is getting a great push, and it's one of the reasons why this particular car manufacturer is still getting subsidies from the government as opposed to any of the other EV manufacturers. And I cannot go without mention the amount of brands in China that are jumping into electric vehicle manufacturing to the point where legacy manufacturers like Volkswagen said, we're not going to develop ICE or internal combustion engine vehicles anymore. That's it, they're done with it. From now on, everything is going to be electric. I learned about that just the other day. So China is doing more than any other country to rely on this green economy. This is going to tie up to, well, the generation of power, the generation of electricity. So I would like to share, Paul, what was your experience in terms of power generation throughout the country?
Well, first, I want to say that yes, China has really blown me away with their electric vehicles, and the commitment that they have in producing electric vehicles. But don't count out Europe and North America and the Japanese quite yet. The announcements that they've come up with, the new brands that are in North America, are very promising and very interesting. And
Mm.
although China has led the way, competition is good, and you're going to have a lot of competition from these other companies coming out. There's a lot of amazing things happening, not just in China, but around the world with regards to this. And much like Elon Musk, who kind of led the way with developing EVs and the EV infrastructure in the market, China has really done it for the masses and shown that it is a business model that can sustain itself. I was in northern Vietnam visiting Hanoi, and it's not as wealthy as Chinese cities, but proud people, a proud city. And you walk down the street, and everyone's got a motorbike and a diesel engine, and it hurts the eyes, it hurts the lungs when you walk down the street. And I came back to Zhuhai from Hong Kong airport, and the contrast hit me immediately about, oh my God, the taxis, everything's electric. There's no sound. There's no pollution hitting my eyes and my and my lungs. And it was a remarkable, eye-opening moment for me. And that's something a lot of people don't realize. China's still very loud. There's a lot of stuff going on here. There's a lot of people, a lot of construction, right? But when I walk down the street, I rarely hear massive amounts of motorbikes or smell emissions, fumes, things like that. So I just want to point that out as well.
I wanted to show this video that you sent us, that you uploaded. This is the one where, tell us about this.
This is in Duqing County in the west side of Guangdong, a very rural area, which we saw these massive wind farms on top of the mountain. We said, let's go there. We thought about maybe camping underneath it, but we decided to find a little bit more sheltered place because it was windy and cold up there. And then we drove into the village, and you can see these. There's a brand new RV camp. It hadn't opened yet. It's about a week away. So this is for you, Fernando, because you're going to go out on the road and be doing this. And these are popping up everywhere because this is a private company that's doing this, and they have RVs so that people can explore the rural areas and live that kind of lifestyle. This is a very small village in Duqing County that continues to be developed, and the roads going out here, the public parks, the facades, you can see it's all tree lined and gorgeous. It was fantastic. And I didn't go there looking for this. I was just exploring the mountains and camping, and we came across this amazing town and village after village, and it was the ease of access, the smiles on people's faces. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience that we just happened to come across. And and I continue to experience that as I explore both sides of Guangdong and up into Hunan and other places. So I loved it. It was great.
I don't know if this is exactly infrastructure. Well, it is infrastructure, definitely. But I would like to share with you, now that you mentioned the RV camping, there is an app on my phone where you can actually go and you can see all the different RVing parks in the city. In the country. So this is China. This is the whole of China. And as you zoom in, you start to see the amount of RV parks all over the country. This is only for RVs. So it's
I've been saying it for years, man.
It's something.
This industry is going to explode in China. It's because you have these roads, you have amazing places to visit, you have a lot of disposable income to afford these fengshe, the house cars, and you, my friend, are going to be living my dream lifestyle, and I'm so jealous. so
all right,
I'm really looking forward to the content you create out of this one, man.
I just hope there is a signal problems where you go with a house car. And
of course not. It's China. You have
it's
connectivity everywhere. That's the thing. That's why you can do it. It's
then
amazing.
we can do a live stream. Then we can do a live stream.
Of
while you're
course.
driving the house car. Yeah, that would be awesome. Mhm.
All right, let us liaise now into the next topic, which is how do we see infrastructure affecting the management or the control of the pandemic? In my personal opinion, it's all about connectivity. It's all about telecommunications and the tracing and the responsiveness of government via all these different apps and all these tracking devices that we carry in our phones that allows us to stay safe. Um, it's inevitable that the virus is around us, but we can be kept safe if we all allow ourselves to be tracked. And I know that that's very difficult for a lot of people to understand or to see as like a positive, but it is. We live normal lives, semi-normal lives, because of this, and that's something that had we not created the infrastructure, the technology to be able to do this, we would be in such bad shape. And I would also like to point one thing out that I've said in the past. I think that not a lot of credit is given to China for its own policy of having zero COVID. I would like people to imagine for a second what the world would be right now if China were crippled by COVID. No PPE production. Basically, the world supply would really take a hit if China were crippled by COVID. So, this whole policy of tracking and controlling and aiming at having zero COVID, it's been very good for the world, and I don't think that a lot of people give China credit for that. But I will like to ask the question to you, Paul or Eiko. How do you think that technology and infrastructure have helped the control of the pandemic? So why don't we go with Eiko first?
I think for me, it's, the health code. It's the most important
Hmm.
thing. Whenever we go in the city or in other city provinces in China, we have to show our health code. We have to show it like with our ID on it, our phone numbers on it, with the um, the nuclear text on it, and that's very important to make sure everybody is clear. Make sure the
Hmm.
public health. And for me, it's like that. And I don't know the how to say the technology behind it, but I think it's very important to connect the internet or the information in one system so that everybody in this country can get health security in this
Hmm.
epidemic area. Yeah, that's what I um, really concerned about, the health code. And I think it's safe
Paul, what?
manpower. Yeah, for the community work, for these staffs from the community, they also will check every house for the health code, from time to time, especially for those quarantine time, save the
Hmm.
labor from them, save manpower of them.
Paul, what is your take on infrastructure and the management of COVID?
Well, the COVID has taught me a lot as an American living in China. I learned some lessons through this time period, and I credit China for teaching me this. Not the Chinese people and the way they've come together, and they continue to fight COVID, just like the rest of the world. China has a much stricter policy with regards to this, and a lot of people in the West, that's not for them, and that's fine. They just have different systems. As far as my experience of how technology and infrastructure has helped in the continued fight towards COVID, because China's not out of the woods yet, we still fight it. Um, I think, as you said, the health codes, also the delivery, Meituan, all the systems that were in place before the outbreak started really helped to contribute to the ongoing life and economy of the country in the last couple of years. I mean, the fact that you still have Meituan out there delivering foods to people who are in lockdown, um, the uh, the health code as well, centralized health code systems when you fly from one city to another, it's all there. Your vaccination records, everything. Other countries have been slow to adopt this, but it really has served as a model that other countries, I think, are really starting to see. Okay, China has done some interesting things. Let's try to adopt the best practices and move forward with that. And so, when it comes to the fight, I think we are all in it together. And China's done some amazing things that the whole world can learn from, and I think the world is learning from it.
Another aspect that is really important to remember is, well, the development of the vaccine itself. China had the infrastructure ready and in place to actually be able to research and develop a vaccine of its own, and to just kick into high gear production of vaccines and deliver an enormous amount of vaccines to all the people of China, let alone all the amount of vaccines that have been donated or sold to other countries. My country has received 3 batches so far of vaccines from China. So that's another bit of technology and infrastructure that, had it not been in place, well, China would be in a far worse place, and the world would be in a far worse place as well. So, with
Those
regards to
infrastructures
infrastructure and COVID,
those infrastructures
yep,
do exist in other countries. It's just on a
yeah,
massive scale here because it's a massive country, and so they are able to ramp
hmm
up production faster, and that's just a matter of numbers. But I mean, I think all the vaccines came out right around the same time as other countries' vaccines. The amount that is produced is partly contributed to the amount of people that live in the country. So just keep that in mind.
hmm All right, let's move on to the last section of today's show. Let me remind you guys that if you're enjoying this video, just give it a thumbs up. Make sure to share, like, comment, and also visit our different links in the description to visit our different channels. But let us start talking then about the final part, the future of infrastructure in China. Because in preparation, we were discussing that it is all good and great to have all the infrastructure, but what's next? What's coming next? And one of the things that I find not too many people talk about is maintenance. The maintenance of this infrastructure is an ongoing thing. So, towards the future, it is very important to keep those high standards of maintenance that we have. I personally have experienced over the last 20 years in terms of making sure that what we have built stands the test of time. But I wanted to ask, particularly Aiko, about this smart industry. So the you were talking about something you wanted to share with us. So what is that about, and do you have anything to show us?
Oh, I already shared it. Shared it. It's the bridge.
Oh, okay.
The bridge construction. Yeah.
All right. But you were
So
talking about smart industries in terms of industries using infrastructure and 5G and this kind of technology to modernize production in China. Is there anything about that we could expand on?
Mm,
We had 5G, green energy, and smart industries.
anything you want to share
Um,
is
i-
okay.
Okay, Paul, you visited something that is kind of like the future, but it's taking place in the present. Why don't
yeah,
we show the
yeah.
video that you sent us about that bridge? Huh? Tell us
Oh,
about it,
the
and we'll
Shenzhongchen
show it
Yeah,
as
bridge.
it
don't
goes.
channel.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's in my backyard, and I've been trying to gain access to this bridge for years because it's a fascinating piece. It's the tallest sea bridge in the world. It's a 26-kilometer link between the west and east sides of the Pearl River Delta. And there are other links, of course, most notably the Zhuhai Hong Kong Macau bridge, but that is very rarely used by the general public because you have to have different registrations, different insurances, and stuff like that to use that. So this bridge, however, is entirely in mainland China, and it's it's going to do wonders. I mean, if you're on that side of the Pearl River Delta, property prices are huge. There's huge density.
Mhm.
Whereas on this side of the Pearl River Delta, it's remarkably more affordable. And so this is going to release some of that pressure, some of that affordability stress, and then balance the entire economic zone. It's an incredible bridge and tunnel project. It's the widest undersea tunnel in the world. And I got the opportunity to go out there and see it and talk with the engineers who are building
Wow.
it. And it's not just the bridge itself that is an engineering marvel. The tools, the vessels, the boats, the manufacturing process, and of course all the workers, the unsung heroes of all of this that are building it out there on that West Island, where there's no air conditioning, there's no trees, there's no parks. They are out there every day building this, and they're building the infrastructure that's going to power the economy for the next century. And all the while knowing that once that is done, there'll be another one to build, and another, and another. And I really was touched by that sense of pride and that sense of duty, not just from the engineers and the bosses of the project, but the line workers, the guys out there on the girders, over rough seas and high winds and the heat of the day, building that. There's an awful lot of pride in the building of not just this bridge, but
Building
everything.
the country,
Building
building their country.
and both literally and metaphorically building bridges between two peoples. And I was touched by this story, and I loved it.
Well, guys, we are coming to. Well, actually, went over an hour. We said we wanted to have a show for 1 hour, but it was a fantastic experience to be able to tell people our perspective, what we think about the development of infrastructure in China. My 20 years of experience. I don't want to finish this show without talking about one of the greatest pieces of infrastructure that has changed lives in China, the Three Gorges. We wanted to talk about it, but really there's no time. So everybody, I want to thank you all for your time, for your attention. If you're watching, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channels. Paul and Eiko, thank you so much for joining us today. And well, until we see you again, do you have anything to say to our audience before we go?
Always really glad to share to watch your experiences, because I read about these comments in the comments area. They said it's really nice to see these real experiences, not just these reports from the Western media, and that's more important for our audience. And for me, I'm also really glad to communicate with you guys about this topic, and looking forward to do this again next time. And thank you, Fernando, and thank you, Paul. I'm looking forward to your awesome videos in the future. And feel free to subscribe to our channel. Okay, thank you, guys. I'll see you guys next time.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. And Paul, I'll talk to you later, guys.
All right,
Bye.
brother. Take care. Take care.